The numbers danced before my eyes, matching one by one, like some cosmic joke coming to life. 6, 12, 24, 33, 41, 47. I must have checked those numbers 50 times before my hands started shaking so badly I dropped my phone. My name is Savannah, and I just won $8.2 million in the state lottery. Helen, I screamed into my phone the moment my best friend picked up. I won. I actually won. Won what? The battle against your mom's guilt trips? Helen's laugh crackled through the speaker. The lottery. The actual lottery. I'm not kidding. Get over here now. 20 minutes later, Helen burst through my apartment door without knocking, still wearing her scrubs from her hospital shift. Show me, she demanded, practically tackling me on my couch. We spent the next hour screaming, jumping around my tiny living room, and planning all the ways this money could change lives. Not just mine, others too. I can finally start that women's entrepreneurship fund I've been dreaming about, I said, my mind racing with possibilities. Help other women break free from. My phone buzzed. Mom's face appeared on the screen. Honey, her voice was syrupy sweet, the tone she always used when she wanted something. Your father and I just saw the announcement. We're coming over. Before I could protest, she hung up. Helen squeezed my hand. Want me to stay? I nodded. Please. 30 minutes later, my parents arrived. Dad's usually stern face was lit up with an unfamiliar smile, and Mom was practically bouncing as she hugged me. Our prayers have been answered, Mom exclaimed, sitting down on my second-hand couch like she owned it. This is exactly what the family business needs. My stomach dropped. What? The business, sweetheart. Dad jumped in, his voice unusually animated. We've been struggling since the recession hit. This is perfect timing. We can expand the warehouse, hire more staff. Wait, I interrupted, my voice sharper than intended. I haven't even decided what I'm doing with the money yet. Mom's smile faltered. What do you mean? Of course you'll invest in the family business. It's your inheritance, anyway. I was actually thinking of starting a community fund, I said carefully, to help women entrepreneurs get their start. A what? Dad's smile vanished. Savannah, this is family we're talking about. The business your grandfather built from nothing. The business that's been bleeding money for years, I countered. The one you refuse to modernize despite everyone's advice. Don't be selfish, Mom snapped, her words cutting through the air like a knife. Family comes first, always. Helen cleared her throat. Maybe Savannah needs time to think things through. It's a lot of money. With all due respect, Mom interrupted, not even looking at Helen. This is a family matter. Helen stays, I said firmly. And this isn't a family matter. It's my money, my decision. Dad stood up, his face darkening. Your grandfather would be ashamed. We raised you better than this. Better than what? I shot back, standing too. Better than wanting to help others? Better than making my own choices? You're being ridiculous, Mom said, her voice trembling. Think about your father's reputation in the community. Think about your sister Hope's future, about Tyron's. I cut in. I'm thinking about all the women in our community who never get a chance, who have great ideas but no support, who get told family first until their dreams die. The silence that followed was deafening. Well, Mom finally said, gathering her purse, I see you've made your choice. Don't come crying to us when you realize your mistake. They left without another word, the door slamming behind them. I collapsed onto the couch, my hands shaking again, but for entirely different reasons. Helen sat beside me, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. You okay? No, I admitted, wiping away angry tears. But I will be. You know what the worst part is? They didn't even ask what I wanted. Not once. Just assumed they could decide for me, like always. So what are you going to do? I took a deep breath, straightening my shoulders. Exactly what I said. I'm starting that fund, and I'm going to make it so successful that they'll have to acknowledge that I made the right choice. Helen grinned. Now that sounds like a plan I can get behind. My phone buzzed again. A text from my younger brother Tyron. Just heard what happened. Mom and Dad are wrong. Do what you need to do. I've got your back. I smiled, feeling stronger already. Sometimes the family you choose understands you better than the family you're born into. And sometimes doing the right thing means being brave enough to stand alone. At least, I thought, looking at Helen and Tyron's message, I wasn't entirely alone. The first family dinner after the lottery win felt like walking into a minefield. I almost didn't go, but Tyron insisted. They're planning something, he warned over the phone that morning. Hope's been acting weird, and Mom's been cooking all day. You know she only makes her special lasagna when she wants something. He wasn't wrong. The moment I walked into my parents' house, the smell of Mom's famous lasagna hit me like a warm, manipulative hug. Savannah, Hope rushed to greet me, her smile too bright. We weren't sure you'd come. Wouldn't miss it, I replied, noting how she was wearing her business casual outfit, the one she usually saved for important meetings. Definitely not a good sign. Dad barely looked up from his newspaper when I entered the living room, but Mom emerged from the kitchen, wearing her pearl necklace, another red flag. She only wore those pearls when she needed to remind us of our family legacy. Perfect timing, Mom chirped. Dinner's ready. The tension around the dining table was thick enough to cut with a knife. Tyron sat next to me, occasionally squeezing my hand under the table when things got particularly uncomfortable. So, Hope started, carefully cutting her lasagna. I've been doing some research about family business investments. Hope, I warned. Just hear me out, she pressed. With proper investment, we could triple the business's value in 5 years. I've prepared a presentation. You prepared a presentation for dinner. I couldn't help but laugh. Seriously. This isn't a joke, Savannah, Dad finally spoke, putting down his fork. This is about securing our family's future. No, I countered. This is about controlling my choices. Again, Mom dabbed her lips with her napkin. Remember when you wanted to study art in college? We guided you toward business school instead, and look how well that turned out. Guided me, I scoffed. You threatened to cut me off completely if I didn't do what you wanted. We were protecting you, Mom insisted. Like you protected me when I wanted to start my own boutique. Hope suddenly interjected, surprising everyone. Or how you protected Tyron when he wanted to take that job in Seattle. Mom's face reddened. That's different, is it? Tyron spoke up, because from where I'm sitting, it looks exactly the same. Enough. Dad's fist hit the table, making the plates rattle. Savannah, you have a responsibility to this family. Your grandfather is dead, I finished firmly. And I'm not him. I'm not you either, Dad. I have my own plans, my own vision. Oh yes, your little charity project, Mom said dismissively. It's not charity, I shot back. It's investment in real people, real businesses. I've already met with financial advisors and lawyers. The framework is ready. You what? Dad's face turned purple. Without consulting us? I'm 28 years old. I don't need your permission. Hope leaned forward. But think about what this means for the family name. The family name. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. You mean the same family name that's becoming synonymous with outdated practices and failed business strategies. The same family business that's losing contracts because you won't modernize or adapt. How dare you? Dad started. No, how dare you? I was shaking now, but I couldn't stop. You want to know my plans? Fine. I'm starting a fund that will support women entrepreneurs in our community. Real support, not just money, but mentorship, networking, resources. And I'm announcing it at the Chamber of Commerce meeting next week. The silence that followed was deafening. You can't do this, Mom whispered. Watch me. Tyron stood up too. Actually, I want to help. I've been learning about sustainable business practices, and I think... Sit down, Dad ordered. No. Tyron replied quietly. I'm done sitting down. Hope looked between us all, conflict clear on her face. Maybe we should at least hear what Savannah has planned. Hope, Mom gasped. I'm just saying. Enough, Dad roared. Savannah, if you go through with this, You're no longer welcome in this house." I grabbed my purse, fighting back tears. "Then I guess this is goodbye." Tyron followed me to the door. "I'll call you tomorrow," he whispered. "We'll figure this out." As I drove away, my phone buzzed with a text from Hope. "I don't agree with how you're doing this, but I respect your courage. Be careful." I pulled over, finally letting the tears fall. My hands were shaking as I called Helen. "They're never going to forgive me," I sobbed when she answered. "Maybe not," she replied gently. "But sometimes being right feels worse than being wrong. Come over, I've got wine and those terrible romance movies you love." I smiled through my tears, already turning toward her place. Sometimes family isn't about who shares your name. It's about who shares your vision. And right now, my vision was crystal clear, even if the path there wasn't. "Your mission statement needs work," Helen said, red pen hovering over my draft. "It sounds too apologetic." We were sitting in my newly rented office space. Nothing fancy, just a converted warehouse unit with exposed brick walls and huge windows. But it felt like possibility. "What about empowering women entrepreneurs through strategic investment and mentorship?" I suggested. "Better." Helen scribbled notes, more confident. A knock interrupted us. Tyron poked his head in, grinning. "Your first applicant is here." My heart jumped. "Already?" A young woman in a crisp linen blazer followed him in. Her natural hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and she carried a worn leather portfolio that had seen better days. "I'm Adeline," she said, extending her hand. "I know I'm early, but I couldn't wait. I've been following your social media announcements about the fund. Please, sit." I gestured to the second-hand couch I'd bought last week. "Tell me about your business idea." Adeline's eyes lit up as she opened her portfolio. "I call it Second Skin Sustainable Fashion. We take discarded luxury garments and transform them into new pieces, maintaining their high-end appeal while promoting sustainability." She spread out sketches and business projections. Her passion was infectious, her research thorough. This was exactly what I'd been hoping for. "The problem is," she continued, "traditional lenders don't take sustainable fashion seriously. They want fast fashion profits, like my family's warehouses full of cheap knockoffs." I muttered. "What?" "Nothing." I shook my head. "Tell me more about your target market." An hour later, Helen and I watched Adeline leave, both of us buzzing with excitement. "She's perfect," Helen declared. "Exactly the kind of entrepreneur you want to support." My phone buzzed, another voicemail from Dad. I played it on speaker. "Savannah, this has gone far enough. You're embarrassing the family. The business community is talking. Your mother can barely show her face at church. If you don't stop this nonsense immediately." I deleted it before he could finish. "Wow," Helen whistled. "He's really pulling out all the stops." "You should hear the ones from Mom," I sighed. "All about how I'm breaking her heart and destroying our legacy." Tyron, who'd been quiet, suddenly spoke up. "You know what's ironic? Dad's latest shipment of knockoff handbags just got seized at customs. The business is in worse shape than they're letting on." "What?" I spun around. "How do you know?" "I still help with the books. Remember, they're desperate for your money, Savannah. More than they're admitting." My phone buzzed again. A text from Hope. "Mom's organizing a family intervention. Don't come to Sunday dinner unless you want a guilt trip from every aunt and uncle in the state." "Great," I groaned. "Now they're mobilizing the entire extended family." "Good thing we're mobilizing too," a new voice said. We all turned to see Mila, the business mentor I'd hired, standing in the doorway. Her gray-streaked hair was tied back in a practical ponytail, and she carried a stack of files. "I've got 15 more applications from women entrepreneurs," she announced, dropping the files on my desk. Words spreading fast, I flipped through the applications, my excitement growing. Tech startups, artisanal food businesses, eco-friendly cleaning services. Each one unique, each one promising. "This is really happening," I breathed. "It sure is," Mila smiled. "And wait until you see tomorrow's business journal." She pulled out her tablet, showing us the headline. "Local heiress breaks family tradition to support women entrepreneurs." They interviewed me. I grabbed the tablet. They interviewed Adeline too, Mila said. She's already becoming our poster child for sustainable business practices. My phone exploded with notifications. Apparently, the article had just gone live. Messages from my parents started pouring in. How dare you air our family business in public? Dad's text read. I raised you better than this, Mom wrote. But mixed in with their messages was one from an unknown number. My daughter showed me your article. I've been running my business from my garage for 3 years. Can we talk? Then another. Is it true you're funding women-owned businesses? I have a patent pending. And another. Finally, someone understanding what we need. Tears blurred my vision as the messages kept coming. You okay? Helen asked softly. Yeah, I wiped my eyes. I knew there was a need, but seeing it like this is bigger than your family drama now, Mila said firmly. These women need you. Are you ready? I looked around at my support system. Helen with her red pen, Tyron with his insider knowledge, Mila with her experience. Then I thought of Adeline's passionate pitch and all the other women waiting for their chance. I'm ready, I said, straightening my shoulders. Let's change some lives. Your sister's been sitting in her car outside for 20 minutes, Helen announced, peering through the office blinds. I looked up from the grant application I was reviewing. Sure enough, Hope's silver SUV was parked across the street, her silhouette visible in the driver's seat. Should we call security? Mila asked, only half joking. No, I sighed. I'll handle it. The spring air was crisp as I crossed the street. Hope rolled down her window as I approached, looking uncomfortable in her corporate suit. This isn't another intervention attempt, is it? I asked. No, She hesitated. Can we talk? Somewhere private? 5 minutes later, we were sitting in my office. Hope perched awkwardly on the edge of the couch, clutching her designer handbag like a shield. Mom and Dad don't know I'm here, she blurted out. They'd kill me if they knew. Okay. I saw Adeline's collection launch yesterday. Hope continued. The sustainable fashion line you funded. It's amazing, Savannah. The press coverage alone. I know, I smiled, thinking of Adeline's triumphant face at the launch party. She's already got orders from 3 major retailers. That's actually why I'm here. Hope took a deep breath. The family business is in trouble. Serious trouble. Tyron mentioned the customs issue. It's worse than that, Hope interrupted. Much worse. Dad's latest shipment wasn't just seized. He's facing potential charges for trademark infringement, and the banks threatening to call in their loans. My stomach dropped. Why didn't anyone tell me? Because Dad's too proud, and Mom's in denial. But that's not all. Hope leaned forward. I've been doing research on your fund. The businesses you're supporting, they're actually making money, real money. While our family's stuck in the same old patterns, you're actually building something sustainable. That's the point, I said. We provide more than just money. We offer mentorship, networking. I want in, Hope blurted out. I blinked. What? Not as a recipient, she clarified quickly. As a mentor. Before I joined the family business, I got my MBA. I know about marketing, about brand development. I could help. Before I could respond, Tyron burst into the office, his face pale. Savannah, you need to see this. He thrust his phone at me. It was a local news website, featuring a headline that made my blood run cold. Blake family business under investigation. Federal agents raid warehouse. Hope's hand flew to her mouth. Oh God, it's happening already. My phone started ringing. Mom's number flashing on the screen. I answered on speaker. How could you do this to us? She sobbed. Was this your plan all along? To destroy your father's business? What? Mom, I had nothing to do with. First you abandon us. Then you start that ridiculous fund. And now this? Your father's being questioned by federal agents. Mom, stop. Hope interrupted. Savannah didn't cause this. We did this to ourselves. Hope? What are you doing there? Are you betraying us too? Mila, who'd been quietly observing, stepped forward. Mrs. Blake, I'm Mila Rose, your daughter's business advisor. Perhaps we could schedule a meeting to discuss some potential solutions. Solutions? Mom's voice turned bitter. The only solution is for Savannah to come home and help save what's left of our family's legacy. Actually, Tyron said, I think Hope's right. Maybe it's time for the family business to evolve. The silence on the other end was deafening. Mom? I tried. Your father will never forgive this, she whispered, before hanging up. Hope buried her face in her hands. This is a nightmare. No, I said firmly. This is an opportunity. Hope, you said you want to help? Prove it. Help me show them there's a better way to do business. How? Start by meeting our entrepreneurs. See what they're building. Maybe there's a way to transform the family business into something we can all be proud of. Mila nodded approvingly. I have a workshop tomorrow. 10 women launching their businesses. Why don't you both come? Hope looked uncertain, but Tyron grinned. Count me in. Someone needs to document this for future family therapy sessions. Despite everything, I laughed. Looking at my siblings, Hope with her MBA and hidden dreams, Tyron with his quiet wisdom, I realized maybe this crisis was exactly what our family needed. You know Dad's going to fight this every step of the way, Hope warned. Probably, I agreed. But he can't fight success, and that's exactly what we're going to show him. My phone buzzed with a text from Helen. Just heard about your dad, coming over with emergency pizza and wine. Also, Adeline called. Wait until you hear her latest idea. I smiled. Sometimes the family you choose helps you fix the family you're born with. And sometimes it takes a crisis to build something better. The door to my office crashed open with such force that the Women's Empowerment Fund plaque fell off the wall. Dad stormed in, his face redder than I'd ever seen it, waving a newspaper. Is this what you wanted? He shouted, throwing the paper on my desk. To see your father in handcuffs on the front page. Dad, do you have any idea what this has done to our reputation? Your mother can't even go to the grocery store without people whispering. Hope and Tyron, who'd been in a meeting with me, stood up protectively, but I waved them back down. This confrontation had been brewing for weeks. Maybe, I said carefully, people are whispering because the business was selling knockoff products, not because I started a legitimate investment fund. Don't you dare take that tone with me, he growled. I built that business to give you children opportunities. Opportunities? Hope suddenly interjected. Like when you told me I couldn't start my own boutique because it would compete with family interests? Dad turned on her. You too. Has Savannah corrupted everyone in this family? Actually, Tyron spoke up. Savannah's the only one being honest about what this family needs. Honest? Dad laughed bitterly. You want honest? Fine. The business is finished. The bank's foreclosing. The suppliers have blacklisted us. And your mother's having anxiety attacks. Happy now? My heart clenched. Dad, sit down, please. Let's talk about this. Talk? Like you talked to us before starting this fund, before giving money to strangers instead of your own family. Those strangers are building successful, legal businesses, I countered. Adeline's sustainable fashion line just got picked up by 3 major retailers. Maria's tech startup just secured additional venture funding. These women are tearing our family apart. He slammed his fist on my desk. No, Dad. Hope said quietly. Your refusal to change is tearing us apart. The office door opened again, and Mom walked in, looking smaller and more tired than I'd ever seen her. Ibrahim, she said softly to Dad, the lawyers are waiting. Mom, I stood up. Stay, both of you. Let me show you what we're building here. Building? Dad scoffed. You're destroying everything we worked for. No, I pulled out a folder. I'm creating something new, something better. Look at these numbers. Look at the businesses we're supporting. Legal businesses. Sustainable businesses. Sustainable like Adeline's fashion line? Mom asked unexpectedly. I saw her interview in the business journal. Yes, I seized the opening. And she's just the beginning. We're not just giving out money. We're creating a network, a community. These women support each other, learn from each other. While our family business dies, Dad muttered. It doesn't have to, Tyron said. Savannah's fund could help us transition to legitimate business practices. Hope's got ideas for rebranding. You've all lost your minds, Dad interrupted, but I noticed his voice had lost some of its thunder. Dad, I tried one more time. You always taught us that family comes first, but maybe it's time to redefine what that means. Maybe it's not just about preserving the past. Maybe it's about building a better future. Mom touched Dad's arm. Ibrahim, maybe we should listen. Listen to our children telling us everything we did was wrong. Not wrong, I said softly, just outdated. The world's changing, Dad. We need to change with it. He stared at me for a long moment, then at Hope and Tyron. Finally, he looked at Mom, who nodded slightly. Fine, he said gruffly. Show me these numbers you're so proud of. For the next hour, we walked them through everything: the successful businesses, the mentorship program, the community impact. Mom asked questions about Adeline's fashion line, while Dad grudgingly admitted some of our financial projections weren't completely ridiculous. As they were leaving, Mom hugged me for the first time in months. I still don't understand everything you're doing, she whispered, but I'm trying to. Dad just nodded stiffly before walking out, but he didn't slam the door this time. After they left, Hope collapsed onto the couch. Well, that was intense, but productive, Tyron added. Did you see Dad's face when you showed him Adeline's profit margins? My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Your father would never admit it, but he kept the folder with your business plans. He's reading it now. I smiled, feeling a glimmer of hope. Maybe sometimes, I said to my siblings, destroying something old is the only way to build something new. Speaking of building, Hope pulled out her laptop. Want to hear my ideas for rebranding the family business? Looking at my sister's excited face and my brother's supportive smile, I realized that sometimes the hardest battles lead to the most important victories. And maybe, just maybe, our family could become something stronger than before. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Adeline Jordan of Second Skin Sustainable Fashion. The conference room erupted in applause as Adeline took the stage. From my seat in the front row, I could see her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted the microphone, but her voice was steady and strong. 6 months ago, I was working from my garage, turning old designer clothes into new fashion statements. Today, thanks to the Women's Empowerment Fund, we have a full production facility, 28 employees, and contracts with major retailers. More applause. I felt Helen squeeze my hand excitedly. But the real success story, Adeline continued, isn't just about numbers. It's about community. Every piece we create is made by local artisans, many of whom are also fund recipients. We're not just making clothes, we're making change. In the middle of the audience, I spotted Mom, sitting straight-backed and proper, her expression unreadable. She'd shown up unexpectedly, slipping in just as the presentations began. After Adeline, 3 more entrepreneurs presented their success stories. Maria showcased her tech platform's growing user base. Sarah demonstrated her eco-friendly cleaning products. Jasmine revealed the expansion plans for her urban farming initiative. During the networking break, Mom approached me, clutching her handbag like a shield. That Adeline, she said carefully. She reminds me of you at her age. So determined. Before I could respond, Mila rushed over. Savannah, the reporter from Forbes is here. And you won't believe who else. Representatives from National Bank's Corporate Investment Division. Mom's eyebrows shot up. Forbes, excuse me, a woman in a sharp business suit interrupted. I'm Amanda from National Bank. We're very interested in discussing a partnership with your fund. Partnership, Mom and I said simultaneously. Amanda smiled. Your success rate with startups is impressive. We'd like to explore matching funds for future investments. Perhaps we could schedule a meeting. As Amanda walked away, Mom touched my arm. Savannah, I need to tell you something. Your father, She was interrupted by Hope, rushing over, her face flushed with excitement. The Sustainable Fashion Association wants Adeline to keynote their annual conference, and they're interested in our family's warehouse space for their next expo. Our warehouse, Mom frowned. But it's being foreclosed. Not if we move fast, Hope said. I've been running numbers. If we convert it into a sustainable fashion hub, with Adeline as anchor tenant. Hope, Mom cut in sharply. Your father would never. Actually, a gruff voice said behind us, I might consider it. We all spun around. Dad stood there, looking uncomfortable in his old suit, hands shoved in his pockets. Dad? I gasped. What are you doing here? He shifted awkwardly. Your mother's been showing me the news articles about your fund, about these women you're helping. He gestured at the room full of successful entrepreneurs. I thought I should see for myself. And, Hope prompted. And, he took a deep breath. I've been doing things the wrong way for a long time. The silence between us was heavy with years of conflict and misunderstanding. The warehouse, he continued finally. Hope's idea, it has merit. Better than watching the bank take it. Ibrahim, Mom whispered, touching his arm. I'm not saying I like everything about this, he added quickly. But I'm willing to listen. Before anyone could respond, Adeline approached our group. Mr. and Mrs. Blake, I just wanted to thank you personally. Your daughter's fund didn't just save my business. It showed me what's possible when someone believes in you. Dad stared at her for a long moment. You employ local workers? Yes, sir. 28 so far, with plans to hire 12 more next month. And your sustainable fashion. It makes money? Adeline smiled. Would you like to see our quarterly projections? To everyone's surprise, Dad nodded. I would, actually. As Adeline led my parents toward her presentation booth, Helen appeared at my side. Did I just see your dad voluntarily talking about sustainable fashion? I think, I said slowly, we just witnessed a miracle. More like the power of success, Mila commented, joining us. Nothing changes minds like solid profits and good press. My phone buzzed, an email from Forbes requesting an interview, then another from National Bank confirming a meeting, then a text from Tyrone. Dad just asked me to research sustainable fashion industry trends. Who is this man, and what did you do with our father? Looking around the room at all these successful women, at my sister's excited planning, at my parents actually listening to Adeline's presentation, I felt something shift. This wasn't just about proving my family wrong anymore. It was about proving something bigger, that change is possible, that success can come from unexpected places, and that sometimes the best revenge is simply doing the right thing well. So, Hope said, rejoining us with a grin. Ready to help me convince Dad to paint the warehouse pink? Let's not push our luck, I laughed, one miracle at a time. The warehouse definitely needs better lighting, Adeline said, her heels clicking on the concrete floor. But the bones are good. Dad trailed behind us, hands clasped behind his back, watching as Adeline gestured at various spaces. This could be the main production area, here, a showroom, and that mezzanine would make perfect office space. The electrical will need updating, Dad muttered, but I noticed he was taking mental notes. Already got quotes, Hope chimed in, waving her tablet. The sustainable energy grants could cover 40% of the costs. A month had passed since the conference, and somehow we'd managed to get Dad to consider converting his failing warehouse into a sustainable fashion hub. The bank had agreed to halt foreclosure proceedings while we developed the new business plan. And you really think other designers will rent space here? Dad asked skeptically. We already have 6 interested tenants, Adeline replied. All fund recipients, all with proven track records. Speaking of track records, Mom's voice echoed as she entered through the side door. The newspaper is here. A young reporter followed her in, notebook in hand. Mr. Blake, is it true you're transitioning from import-export to sustainable fashion? That's quite a change. Dad straightened his shoulders, and I held my breath, waiting for his response. Sometimes, he said slowly, you have to adapt or die. My daughter taught me that. I nearly dropped my phone in shock. Mom beamed. And Ms. Blake, the reporter turned to me. How does it feel to see your fund's success inspiring your family's business transformation? Before I could answer, a commotion at the entrance interrupted us. Mila burst in, followed by Helen and several suited executives. They're here early, Mila announced breathlessly. The National Bank investment team. Now, Hope squeaked, smoothing her blazer. We haven't even finished the presentation. Actually, the lead executive stepped forward. We've seen enough. Your fund's success rate, combined with this warehouse conversion project, we're prepared to make an offer. Dad's eyebrows shot up. What kind of offer? Full financing for the warehouse renovation, plus matching funds for the next round of entrepreneur grants. The reporter scribbled frantically. There's one condition, the executive continued. We want this to be a pilot program. If successful, we'll replicate it in other cities. Replicate, Mom whispered. Your daughter's model works, the executive explained. Small business incubation, sustainable practices, community investment. It's the future of ethical business. Dad sat heavily on a nearby crate. The future, he repeated softly. Ibrahim, Mom touched his shoulder. This could save everything. Make it better, even. Could we? Dad cleared his throat. Could we keep the family name on the building? Of course, Adeline said quickly. How about Blake's Sustainable Fashion Hub? The reporter raised her hand. Could I get a photo? The whole family, plus Adeline. This is quite a story. Local business, reborn, through next-generation leadership. As we gathered for the photo, I felt Mom slip her hand into mine. I'm sorry, she whispered, for not believing in you sooner. Smile, the reporter called. Later, as the executives discussed details with Dad and Hope, Adeline pulled me aside. You know what's ironic, she said. If your parents hadn't fought you so hard about the fund, you might never have pushed to make it this successful. And without that success, without it, we couldn't save the family business, I finished. Talk about karma. Sometimes the best revenge is massive success, Helen quipped, joining us. It's not about revenge anymore, I realized. It's about evolution. Speaking of evolution, Tyrone called out. Dad's asking about installing solar panels. Who is this man, and what have you done with our father? We all laughed, watching Dad enthusiastically discuss renewable energy with the bank executives. Mom was showing the reporter old photos of the warehouse on her phone, pride evident in her voice as she described its upcoming transformation. Ms. Blake, one of the executives approached me. We'd like to discuss expanding your role. With the pilot program rolling out nationally, we need someone with your vision at the helm. My phone buzzed, a text from Hope. See, told you burning bridges sometimes lights the way forward. I looked around the warehouse, at Adeline sketching designs with her team, at Mom and Dad embracing change instead of fighting it, at my siblings finding their own paths within our new family legacy. You know what's funny? I said to Helen. I started this fund to prove my parents wrong. Instead, it proved that sometimes the right thing and the smart thing are the same thing. And that families can change, she suggested. That too. I smiled, watching Dad actually laugh at something Adeline said. That too. The warehouse might still need better lighting, but our future had never been brighter. And now, to cut the ribbon for the Blake Sustainable Fashion Hub, the mayor announced. We have 3 generations of the Blake family. Dad stepped forward first, looking sharp in his new suit. One of Adeline's designs, of course. Mom stood beside him, wearing a proud smile and a sustainable silk scarf. Hope, Tyrone, and I completed the line, holding the oversized scissors together. Ready? Dad whispered, his hands steady on the scissors. Together. The ribbon fell, and applause erupted from the crowd gathered in front of the transformed warehouse. The building's facade gleamed with solar panels and living walls, while the new logo, designed by Hope, sparkled in recycled metal letters. I never thought I'd see the day, Helen murmured beside me. Your dad actually wearing sustainable fashion. I never thought I'd see him smiling at a grand opening that wasn't for a discount store," Tyron added. Inside, the space buzzed with energy. Adeline's showroom dominated the ground floor, while other entrepreneurs we'd funded occupied carefully designed spaces throughout the building. The mezzanine housed our fund's offices, where Mila was already conducting tours for potential investors. "Savannah," Mom called, waving me over to where she stood with a group of her church friends. "Tell them about the employment program." As I explained how we'd created jobs for local artisans, I watched Dad showing some business associates around. He stopped at each entrepreneur's space, proudly introducing them like they were family. "Remember when he couldn't even say the word sustainable without grimacing?" Hope whispered, appearing at my elbow. "Remember when Mom cried because I wouldn't invest in knockoff handbags?" I whispered back. "I heard that," Mom said, joining us. "And I was wrong. We were all wrong." She squeezed my hand. "But you showed us a better way." "Mrs. Blake," Adeline approached, carrying a garment bag. "The prototype is ready." Mom's eyes lit up. She'd been collaborating with Adeline on a line of sustainable fashion for elegant, mature women, as she put it. Watching my mother transform from skeptic to enthusiastic sustainable fashion advocate had been one of the most surprising developments of all. "Ibrahim," Mom called, "come see our new design." As my parents huddled with Adeline over the prototype, Helen nudged me. "Look who just walked in." A group of national bank executives entered, led by their CEO, but it was the woman with them who caught my attention. The same loan officer who'd rejected my first business loan application 2 years ago. She recognized me too, approaching with an awkward smile. "Ms. Blake, congratulations on all your success." "Thank you," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. "Would you like a tour? We could start with our profit margins." She flushed, but before she could respond, Dad called everyone to attention. "I'd like to say something," he announced, his voice carrying across the space. The crowd quieted. When my father started this business, he had a dream of creating a legacy. For years, I thought protecting that legacy meant never changing. I was wrong. He gestured around the transformed warehouse. This is what legacy really means. Not clinging to the past, but building a better future. And I have my daughter Savannah to thank for showing me that. And Hope and Tyron, Mom added quickly, making everyone laugh. And Hope and Tyron, Dad agreed. But mostly, I want to thank all these incredible entrepreneurs who trusted us with their dreams. You're not just renting space here, you're part of our family now. Speaking of family, Adeline stepped forward. "We have an announcement. The Sustainable Fashion Hub model is being adopted by 5 other cities. Mrs. Blake will be heading up the mentorship program, and Mr. Blake will be advising on the conversions of industrial spaces." My parents beamed, and I felt tears prick my eyes. A year ago, they couldn't imagine life beyond their failing business. Now they were pioneering a national movement. "You did this," Helen whispered. "You changed everything." "We did this," I corrected, watching Hope show off her marketing plans to the bank executives, while Tyron explained our solar power system to interested investors. "All of us." The loan officer approached again, this time more hesitant. "Ms. Blake, we're launching a new division focused on sustainable business loans. Would you consider serving on our advisory board?" I smiled, thinking of all the future entrepreneurs who might need someone to believe in them. "I'd be honored." "Savannah," Mom called, "come take a family photo." As I joined my family in front of Adeline's window display, I realized something profound. Sometimes the greatest act of love isn't protecting what is, but fighting for what could be. And sometimes the family business isn't about the business at all. It's about the family and how it grows together. "Everyone say sustainable," the photographer called. And we did together, laughing at how far we'd come and excited about where we were going.
The sound of cold rain beating against the pavement mingled with Rachel Anderson's footsteps. Usually, it took 15 minutes to walk to the Newton Wellesley Hospital Clinic. Today, she had given her umbrella to a man without one and was hurrying along in the rain. "You're soaking wet." Christine, who had been at the clinic's reception for 6 years, laughed as she handed Rachel a towel. Rachel's day always began with their morning greetings at the reception desk. "Yes, but someone needed the umbrella more than I did." "You never change, do you?" As Rachel dried her wet hair, she recalled the morning's events. After dropping off her 5-year-old daughter Lily at daycare, her husband Tom had sent a message saying, "I'll be late again today." The overtime had been increasing lately. He said he'd been assigned a new project as a middle manager at his IT company. But it's all for the family. Telling herself this, Rachel began organizing patient records. Outside the window, the rain had stopped, and sunlight was beginning to shine through. At 3 p.m., it was time to pick up Lily from daycare. When Rachel arrived at the First Baptist Church of Newton's daycare center, Lily was happily folding origami with Jessica, the new teacher. "Mommy, look at this beautiful butterfly." "Oh, how lovely." Jessica gave Rachel a gentle nod with a peaceful smile. She appeared to be in her late 20s, a young teacher with a modest demeanor. Since joining 2 years ago, she had become popular with the children. "Mrs. Anderson, Lily is very good at origami." "Thank you." She often plays with origami at home too. As they conversed, Rachel sensed something shadowy in Jessica's expression. Or was it just her imagination? On Sunday, dinner was held at Patricia's house as usual. It was a stately 2-story white house in Newton's quiet residential area, with a pool hidden from street view and a well-maintained garden blooming with flowers in the backyard. "Rachel, dear, in that outfit." As soon as they entered, Patricia's eyes fixed on Rachel's casual dress. "Isn't this just a regular dinner?" "Well, yes, but members of the First Baptist Church women's group are coming too." Tom silently stared at his smartphone. Lately, he'd been having fewer conversations with his family. "Lily, what is that hair clip?" Patricia's stern gaze now turned to her granddaughter, pointing at the butterfly-shaped clip Rachel had put in her hair that morning. "Isn't it cute? It matches Jessica Teacher's." The moment those words were spoken, Patricia's expression hardened. Tom looked up from his smartphone, his face changing for just a moment before quickly forcing a smile. "Well, let's eat." Patricia quickly changed the subject. The table was set with her usual elaborate dinner: roast beef, gratin, and seasonal salad. But tonight, there was an unusually heavy atmosphere around the dining table. "Tom, how's work going lately?" "Well, busy with the new project." Patricia nodded with satisfaction. Actually, Tom's job had come through Patricia's connections. "Lily, I've prepared a special dress for you to wear to next week's church summer festival." "Yay!" Rachel felt uneasy about Patricia's words. Her mother-in-law usually didn't announce gifts for Lily in advance. It felt almost like she was setting something up. As they were leaving after dinner, Patricia stopped Rachel. "Rachel, are you truly happy?" "What?" "With this family, with this life?" There was something ominous in that question. Rachel struggled to answer. True, the family dynamics had been changing lately, but... Of course I am. That was all Rachel could say. However, from that day forward, invisible cracks began to appear in her peaceful daily life. No one could have predicted what would happen at next week's summer festival. On a summer evening, the bells of First Baptist Church rang out across Newton. Rachel looked up at the orange-tinted sky from the clinic window. Mrs. Anderson, here are the records for the last patient. While reviewing the documents handed to her by a colleague, Rachel checked a message from Tom. Another overtime notice. Working late again. The message was terse. Tom's messages had become increasingly brief lately. When Rachel went to pick up Lily from daycare, Jessica was waiting for her, seeming somewhat unsettled. Mrs. Anderson, I need to talk to you about something. Just then. Jessica. Tom's voice rang out. Why was her husband here when he was supposed to be working overtime? Oh, Tom. You're early. Rachel's question clearly flustered Tom. Yes, the project meeting ended early. I thought I'd pick up Lily. Jessica silently watched their exchange, her eyes suggesting she had something to say. I'll tell you another time, she said hurriedly before disappearing into the daycare building. That evening, in the living room after Lily had gone to bed, Rachel found herself thinking about Tom's recent behavior. The increase in overtime. Never letting go of his phone. Less time with family. And today's incident at daycare. I'm overthinking this, she whispered to herself. However, the events at Patricia's house the following Sunday would transform these anxieties into certainty. Lily, what are you wearing? Patricia's tone was harsher than usual. Lily was wearing a dress she said Jessica had given her. Isn't it pretty? Jessica teacher. Enough about Jessica teacher. Patricia's voice trembled. Tom stood up and walked out to the garden. Mother, what's wrong? When Rachel asked, Patricia heaved a deep sigh. Young women these days are so presumptuous. Barging into other people's families. Rachel felt unsettled by those words. Why would Patricia become so upset at the mention of Jessica's name? On the drive home, Lily said in a small voice. Mommy, Grandma scared me. Why? Because she got really angry when I talked about Jessica teacher. Rachel caught a glimpse of Tom's expression in the rearview mirror. Her husband gripped the steering wheel tightly, as if pretending not to hear. The next day, Rachel attended a parents' meeting at the daycare. There, she overheard rumors about Jessica's 2-year-old son. Nobody knows who the father is. But I heard she lived in Newton even before she came to this daycare. Maybe she got close to someone in the church's young adult group. The mother's gossip pierced Rachel's heart. Jessica's 2-year-old son. 2 years. Tom's behavior had started changing about 2 years ago. And Patricia's extreme reaction. I'm overthinking, she repeated to herself. But the dots were connecting one by one. That night, Tom's phone rang. Rachel clearly saw Jessica, displayed on the screen. Tom hastily stood up and left the room. Meanwhile, Rachel received a message from Patricia. Tomorrow is the church summer festival. Bring Lily. We need to have an important talk. Rachel exhaled deeply before responding. All the previous unease, anxiety, and doubt seemed to be converging toward tomorrow. Outside the window, the summer night wind rustled through the trees. A siren wailed from the direction of Newton Wellesley Hospital, as if forecasting tomorrow's events. At the First Baptist Church Summer Festival, the sweet aroma of roasted corn wafted through the fresh breeze from the stands set up in Cold Spring Park. Church community members were gradually gathering in the park as dusk approached. "Mommy, I want that cotton candy." Rachel smiled at Lily's innocent voice. Tom wasn't attending, citing work reasons. These past few days, conversations with her husband had become even more sparse. "Rachel." She turned to find Patricia calling out to her. More meticulously made up than usual, she exuded the dignity of the First Baptist Church Women's Group chairwoman. "Lily, I brought the dress I promised you." In her hands was a new dress, an elegant piece with pale blue lace. "But she's already dressed. Change her into this, now." Patricia's voice grew stern. As Rachel started to refuse, she noticed a familiar figure at the park entrance. It was Jessica. And she was holding the hand of a boy who looked about 2 years old. "Oh, Jessica teacher." As Lily tried to wave. "No." Patricia grabbed Lily's hand forcefully. "Stop it. You're hurting Lily." Rachel tried to intervene, but Patricia was clearly not herself. Her face was pale, her hands trembling uncontrollably. "This child." Patricia's eyes were fixed. "This child doesn't deserve to be here." A sudden scream. Patricia dragged Lily toward the fountain. "Stop." Ignoring Rachel's protests, Patricia tried to push Lily's head toward the fountain. Screams erupted from the crowd. "Help! Somebody!" Rachel desperately pulled Lily toward her. Finally managing to break Patricia's grip, she embraced her daughter. "Lily, are you all right?" Lily was soaking wet and her tiny body was shaking. "Mommy. I was scared." Through trembling lips, shocking words tumbled out. Grandma said, "I'm not supposed to talk about Daddy and Jessica teacher's baby." Rachel felt the blood drain from her face. The surrounding commotion seemed to fade away. "What did you say?" Patricia had collapsed onto the ground, covering her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking. Jessica rushed over, clutching her son. Her expression was desperate. "Mrs. Anderson. Please let me explain." Rachel looked at Jessica's son's face. The familiar features. Eyes that resembled Tom's. Festival music played through the park speakers. The bustle of food stands. Children's laughter. But around the fountain, an eerie silence prevailed. "Rachel." "I'll explain everything," Patricia said in a strained voice. 30 years ago. I made the same mistake. The evening sky turned red. The fountain splashing seemed to mark time passing. Long shadows stretched across Newton. One truth was revealed, and another dark secret emerged. The family secret that no one knew was about to be exposed here, in front of this small fountain. Jessica's 2-year-old son. Patricia's mistake from 30 years ago. And the truth about Tom's birth. Everything was connecting. In Newton's warm summer twilight, a family's hidden history was quietly but surely coming to light. The fluorescent lights in Newton Wellesley Hospital's waiting room cast a cold glow. Rachel sat motionless, holding Lily in her wet dress. "I brought you a blanket." An older nurse spoke kindly. She was a colleague from the clinic. Rachel silently nodded. Her phone screen showed a string of missed calls from Tom. But Rachel had no strength left to respond. "Mommy, I want to go home." Lily's voice brought Rachel back to reality. During the taxi ride home, Lily clung to her mother in the back seat, trembling slightly. At midnight, the sound of the front door opening echoed through the house. "Rachel?" Tom's voice. Rachel watched her husband from the darkness of the living room. "Working late?" "Yes, project deadline." "Were you really at the office?" Tom stopped at Rachel's cold voice. "What do you mean? Weren't you at Jessica's house?" Silence filled the room. The next morning, Rachel didn't send Lily to daycare. Her daughter was still sleeping, exhausted. Opening her computer, she accessed the hospital database. It might be an ethics violation, but there was no turning back. She typed "Jessica" into the search field. Obstetrics records. 2 years ago. Male birth. Just as I thought. With trembling hands, she opened Tom's credit card statements. There were regular payments to a luxury hotel near the street Chestnut Hill. Rent payments for an apartment in Newton Center. Baby supplies purchased at Whole Foods Market Newton. All concentrated near Jessica's address. Her steps felt heavy as she headed to First Baptist Church. Sunday service time. Patricia would surely be there. Rachel. When she found Patricia in the prayer room, her mother-in-law was already in tears. "You knew." "Yes, but I wanted to protect them. This family. Tom, and my own sin." Patricia's confession quietly began. 30 years ago, Patricia had an affair. The result was Tom. "I never could tell my husband. He died believing Tom was his. And Tom. Yes. My son, the result of my sin, yet I kept demanding perfection from him." Light through the church's stained glass fell between them. That night, when Tom came home, Rachel was waiting with his credit card statements. "Explain." "Rachel. What did Lily mean about a baby?" Tom's cornered expression crumbled. "My relationship with Jessica started 2 years ago." "Why?" "I don't know. Work stress, or maybe mother's expectations." A fragmented confession. The existence of a 2-year-old son. Secret financial support. Plans for a settlement to cover everything up. Mother knew everything. That's why she was afraid Lily might say something. Yes. But it has to end now. Tom's voice shook. I meant to tell you. But every day, I kept putting it off. And that's how our family fell apart. Rachel stood up and walked to the window. Newton's night view reminded her of happier days. We can't go back. Rachel. Let's get divorced. Those words froze the air in the room. Upstairs, Lily was sleeping. Her life would change tomorrow too. But having the courage to face the truth would be better for their daughter than living in a family built on lies. In Newton's night sky, airplane lights streamed past, as if guiding Rachel and Lily toward their new life. The old clock at First Baptist Church struck noon. As bells rang across Newton, Patricia sat alone on a pew in the prayer room. I'll tell you everything. Patricia's voice had lost its former authority. Before Rachel, she began unraveling memories from 30 years ago. I was expected to be the perfect wife and mother. As a prominent figure in Newton, as chair of the church women's group, but beneath that mask. In the hot summer of 1994, Patricia had an affair with a young church pastor. Tom was the result. I could never tell my husband the truth. He died believing Tom was his child. Patricia's hands trembled. And Tom, though he was the result of my sin, I kept demanding perfection from him. Rachel listened silently. All the pieces were now connecting. When Jessica became pregnant, I saw my own mistake. And I desperately tried to protect this secret. Silence enveloped them. Looking back, they saw Tom standing there. He had heard everything. I always wanted to know who my real father was. Tom. I even had a DNA test done. But I never had the courage to look at the results. Tom held out an envelope. The unopened DNA test results were inside. Open it. At Rachel's words, Tom opened the envelope with trembling hands. The results confirmed Patricia's confession. How could I judge Jessica when I'm like this? Mother. Tears flowed from Tom's eyes. The suppressed emotions of a 49-year-old man who had never known the truth about his birth came pouring out. I almost made Jessica's child go through the same thing. At Newton Wellesley Hospital's cafeteria, Jessica began telling everything. Meeting Tom in the church's young adult group 2 years ago. Their relationship. The unexpected pregnancy. And Patricia's pressure and hush money. I don't want to lie anymore. There was determination in Jessica's eyes. I'm leaving Newton. I'll raise my son in Chicago, where my parents live. Tom quietly nodded at those words. I'll pay child support. And someday, I'll tell my son the whole truth. Rachel was packing the last of their belongings at their Newton Center home. Mommy, what's our new home like? Lily asked anxiously. It's where Mommy used to live when she was little. There's a park, and lots of friends waiting. Isn't Daddy coming? Rachel stopped packing and hugged Lily. "Daddy's staying here. But he'll come visit us. And someday, you might meet your little brother too." Lily nodded silently. With understanding beyond her 5 years, she was trying to accept the situation. At the fountain in Cold Spring Park. The day before departure, Rachel visited alone. Who would have thought that day's events would lead to this? The fountain water sparkled in the sunset. Patricia had begun receiving counseling from a specialist. Tom was trying to navigate a new relationship with Jessica. And Rachel was about to start a new life with Lily. At Logan International Airport, Tom saw Rachel and Lily off at the boarding gate. "Be happy there." "Thank you." "And you, face your true self." A final embrace. Lily clung to Tom. "Daddy, we'll see you again, right?" "Of course. I'll definitely come visit." The plane began rolling down the runway. Newton's cityscape grew smaller through the window. First Baptist Church's spire. Cold Spring Park's greenery. And that fountain. Everything receded into the distance. Rachel squeezed Lily's hand. This wasn't an ending. It was a new beginning. The plane took off toward the morning sun, as if illuminating the new dawn for mother and daughter from above. In my backyard in suburban Maine stand 2 white garden chairs. My husband Robert placed them there, saying, "Let's watch the stars together." Since losing him to a heart attack 2 years ago, these chairs have been occupied by me, my grandson Luke, and occasionally, visiting memories. I'm Patricia Mitchell, Pat to everyone, a 63-year-old former elementary school counselor. With my silver-tinged hair loosely tied back and always wearing my denim apron while gardening, I still haven't lost my counselor's habit of noticing small changes in children, even after 30 years of experience. Well, I'd better prepare for this weekend. The living room shelves are lined with dinosaur encyclopedias, growing by 1 volume each time Luke visits. Next to them stands a telescope, a birthday gift we gave Luke last month when he turned 6, from his parents and me. A familiar ringtone sounds from my smartphone. I'll bring Luke over at 3 tomorrow. A message from Sarah, my daughter-in-law. Luke recently showed me how to use my phone properly, after watching me repeatedly make mistakes with each tap. "Grandma, press here." Slowly, "Okay." Sarah works as a pediatrician at the local hospital. While her perfectionist nature makes her a trusted doctor, she sometimes struggles to remain objective when it comes to her own son. Having lost her mother early in life, she looks to me as a mother figure. She even chose me as her bridal attendant at her wedding. My son James thrives as a project manager at an IT company. Though his job involves frequent business trips, he always spends weekends with his family. His words, "Mom, I feel at peace knowing Luke is with you," give me a sense of purpose. Tall with kind eyes, he's the spitting image of his late father Robert. And then there's Luke, the star of our weekend gatherings. His brown curly hair and large eyes come from his mother, while his caring nature mirrors his father's. He's a 6-year-old boy who loves dinosaurs and stars. His particular attachment to Triceratops is remarkable. Even while harvesting vegetables in the garden, his eyes light up as he exclaims, "This broccoli looks just like a Triceratops horn." Our weekends follow a familiar rhythm. On Saturday mornings, Luke arrives wearing his dinosaur backpack. "Grandma," his voice rings out, spreading smiles throughout the house. Mornings are dedicated to gardening together. While I tend to the vegetables, Luke digs with his small shovel, earnestly searching for what he calls possible dinosaur fossils. Sometimes my neighborhood friends stop by during their walks, asking, "Luke, made any new discoveries?" We prepare lunch together. I cut vegetables into dinosaur shapes at Luke's request, arranging carrots into stegosaurus forms and broccoli into T-Rex shapes. It's detailed work, but it's my specialty. "Amazing. Grandma, your veggie dinosaurs look so real." Afternoons are spent reading constellation books in the backyard if weather permits, or tackling dinosaur puzzles indoors on rainy days. In the evening, I bake apple pie using my mother's recipe, with the secret being just the right touch of sweetness. Drawn by the aroma from the oven, Luke peeks into the kitchen asking, "Grandma, is apple pie today's dessert?" Nights are for stargazing through the telescope. Sitting in the white garden chairs, Luke enthusiastically shares his knowledge about space. "That's the North Star. I memorized everything." Looking at my grandson's profile as he speaks like a little astronomer fills me with joy. Though I still miss Robert at times, these days surrounded by precious family are filled with warm light. But recently, I'd begun to notice small shadows in that light. One weekend during our usual stargazing session, Orion, Luke's favorite constellation, was beginning to shine in the autumn sky. "Luke, the stars are particularly clear tonight." I called out while looking through the telescope, but there was no response from him, who usually would have jumped at the chance. When I turned around, Luke was curled up small in the white garden chair, hugging his knees. "Grandma, can we skip stargazing tonight? I'm kind of tired." His voice sounded different from his usual energetic tone. When I approached and touched his forehead, it felt slightly feverish. Worried about the night chill, I immediately ushered him inside. "Lie down for a bit. Grandma will make you some warm soup." While heating chicken soup in the kitchen, I reflected on Luke's recent behavior. Last weekend too, he had cut short his dinosaur fossil hunt in the garden and rested on the sofa. His dinosaur-shaped vegetable salad, which he usually finished completely, was now often left half-eaten. Before bedtime, while helping him change into his pajamas, I noticed an unusual bruise on his left arm. "Luke, what happened here?" "Oh. I might have fallen. I don't remember." Feeling uneasy about his vague response, I took a photo with my smartphone just in case. I pulled out my old notebook and began recording the date along with these concerning observations. 30 years of counseling experience was setting off alarm bells. Over the next few weeks, I continued recording subtle changes. Week 1 of October, increased napping, food intake reduced to about 2/3 of normal, night fevers, 2 new bruises noted. Week 2 of October, shortness of breath on stairs, decreased interest in favorite dinosaur books, one episode of night crying, teacher reported increased leftover lunch. Sarah, I need to discuss something with you. One day, I called Sarah. As a pediatrician, she might notice something. Haven't you noticed Luke getting sick more easily lately? Yes, he does seem a bit tired. But children his age often have ups and downs in their health. Aren't you worrying too much? Sarah's voice on the phone maintained its usual calm, but I could sense an underlying uneasiness. One Saturday afternoon, when Luke and I were alone in the kitchen. "Grandma," Luke called out in a small voice. "Don't tell Mom and Dad, but I often wake up at night. It hurts." I caught my breath. My grandson's confession tightened my heart. In my notebook, I recorded his exact words that day. The location of pain, frequency, symptoms. I documented everything I could. It was all I could do at the moment. As weeks passed, I noticed changes in James and Sarah too. Sarah's voice on the phone grew weary, sometimes faltering. James would seem about to say something during Luke's drop-offs and pickups, then swallow his words. And my notebook entries kept growing. Changes in health, meal records, locations of bruises. My anxiety grew daily. But while keeping Luke's "don't tell" promise, I kept thinking about what I could do as a grandmother. I tried new soup recipes, finely chopped vegetables mixed into jelly, constantly innovating to make food easier for Luke to eat. But somewhere in my heart, I knew. This wasn't just a common cold or fatigue. The last page of my notebook read, "My dear Luke, all I can do is watch over you quietly, but I promise to keep doing just that, always." At 2 a.m., only the pendulum of the old grandfather clock echoed through the quiet house. After spending hours restlessly in bed, I finally decided to make some herb tea in the kitchen. Opening my notebook, I review recent entries about Luke. The chamomile aroma slightly eases my tension. Outside the window, autumn trees cast eerie shadows in the moonlight. Next door, Mr. Richardson's house was already dark. At this hour, everyone should be peacefully asleep. Breaking that silence, my smartphone in the living room emitted a pale blue light. The screen showed Luke. My heart leaped. At this hour, surely not. With trembling fingers, I tapped the screen twice before successfully opening the message. The first thing that caught my eye was a photo of a small hand wrapped in bandages. The white bandages were tinged pink in places. Below it was a message that made my blood run cold. "I'm trapped. Help. Luke." What does this mean? My voice echoed emptily in the darkness. I immediately dialed James's number. The ring tone went on endlessly. After it cut off, I tried Sarah's number. Same result. I even tried their home phone, but there was no answer. Stay calm. Speaking to myself, I called the police. A young male officer's voice came through the receiver. "Pennsylvania State Police. I received a distress message from my grandson. How old is your grandson? 6 years old. Lucas Mitchell, we call him Luke. Do you have his parents' contact information? I've called multiple times, but no one's answering. It's currently 3:07 a.m. I apologize, but missing persons reports for minors require a 24-hour observation period. But I have a photo of his hand wrapped in bandages. Something must be wrong. I understand your concern, but regulations state. A wave of helplessness washed over me at this cold response. Outside, pitch-black darkness. At this hour, the 40-minute drive would be too dangerous. But just sitting and waiting. Looking at the living room shelves, I see Luke's dinosaur encyclopedias lined up. Last weekend's smile as we read together. His eyes sparkling as he pointed to the Triceratops page, saying, "Aren't these horns amazing?" Next to them, the new telescope. It was just recently that he exclaimed, "Grandma, I can see Orion." The clock moves cruelly slow. 3:30, 4 o'clock, 4:30. In my notebook, I add new entries with shaking hands. Luke's health changes, recent behavior, and tonight's message. Everything must be pointing to something, but I can't grasp the truth. The moment the first light of dawn broke through, I grabbed my car keys. Still only 5:30 a.m. The roads were wrapped in thick fog, street lights dimly piercing the darkness. What's usually a 30-minute journey would take 40 minutes in this fog. My hands on the steering wheel were still trembling slightly. The main street, normally busy with commuter traffic, was like a ghost town at this hour. Even the traffic lights had switched to flashing yellow. My headlights reflected off the fog, creating eerie rings of light. I arrived at my son's house just before 6 o'clock. The porch light was still on. Running to the familiar white door, I found a note attached. "Don't worry. We'll be back soon." Sarah's recognizable handwriting. But at this hour, in this way. Complete silence inside the house. None of the usual morning sounds, no breakfast preparation, no TV, no Luke's voice. "Pat. So early." Dorothy from next door, preparing for her morning walk, called out with concern. She's been a friend for 20 years and leads the 6 a.m. walking group. "Dorothy, did you notice anything last night?" "Yes. I believe it was around 1 a.m. I heard what sounded like an ambulance. Though its siren wasn't on. 1 a.m. And I saw 2 or 3 figures. They seemed to be in a hurry." That information sent chills down my spine. Luke's message came at 3 a.m. 2 hours after the ambulance. My hand tightened around my notebook. 30 years of counseling experience told me this was far from a normal situation. In the morning mist, my shadow watching the white door slowly dissolved into the sunrise. In my notebook, there remained anxieties yet unwritten. My phone rang in the misty entrance, breaking my helpless stance. The screen showed James. My hands shook so much that it took 3 tries before I could answer. "Mom." My son's exhausted voice. "James." Luke, where's Luke? Is he all right? We're at Boston Children's Hospital. Luke is currently undergoing tests. Mom, I'm so sorry. We should have called earlier. Those words nearly made my knees buckle. Leaning against the porch railing, I listened to my son's explanation. Last night, Luke suddenly complained of severe abdominal pain, and we rushed him to the local hospital. After their tests, they said there was strong suspicion of severe childhood cancer. James's voice broke. The medical team held an emergency conference and decided to transfer him immediately to the specialist hospital in Boston. They started preparing for emergency helicopter transport. Everything happened so fast. Why didn't you call me? Sarah and I discussed it. We didn't want you driving alone in the middle of the night, but that's just an excuse. We should have told you first, Mom. After a deep sigh, James continued. Even in the ambulance, Luke kept saying, "Tell Grandma." He was clutching his phone, desperately trying to type a message. The message, so that's why the 3 a.m. message. The hospital's Wi-Fi was acting up, which delayed the sending. When he said he was trapped, I think he was expressing his anxiety about being in an unfamiliar hospital room in his own way. I'm coming right now. But Mom, it's a 3-hour drive to Boston. Driving alone. I'll be fine. At my age, I can't just sit still when my grandson is sick. After hanging up, I immediately started preparing. Notebook, change of clothes, and, from the kitchen, a thermos of Luke's favorite soup. The road to Boston overlapped with morning rush hour traffic. The congestion that would normally irritate me now served as time to calm my thoughts. The scenery changed from suburban to urban. After 3 hours, the massive hospital came into view. Sarah was waiting at the pediatric ward entrance. Her usual professional demeanor seemed diminished by exhaustion and worry. "Pat, I'm so sorry." When I hugged her, her shoulders shook. "I'm awful, both as a mother and a doctor. I couldn't see the changes right in front of me. Even though I examined him every day, my own child." "Sarah, don't blame yourself. But you noticed, Pat. That notebook, even when I dismissed it, you kept recording." Dr. Anderson, the attending physician, was waiting in the examination room. My notebook lay open on his desk. James sighed deeply beside it. "Mrs. Mitchell, first, let me thank you for these detailed records." Dr. Anderson continued while carefully turning the pages of my notebook. "These records of bruises, changes in appetite, fatigue patterns, particularly crucial were the detailed notes on bruise locations and their timing. This helped us understand the progression of the condition. But I should have noticed earlier." "No, Mrs. Mitchell. If anything, your observant eye led to early detection. Actually, your grandson's symptoms were atypical. Most cases aren't discovered until much later." Sarah picked up the medical records, adding explanation through a choked voice. "It's a special type of acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Pat, without the records you kept, diagnosis would have taken much longer. If that had happened..." Her words trailed off. Moreover, Dr. Anderson continued, Mrs. Mitchell's dietary innovations are noteworthy. Cutting vegetables into dinosaur shapes, this was more significant than just creativity. Normally, appetite decreases significantly at this stage, but Luke's nutritional status remained remarkably good. This is crucial for treatment. Suddenly, a knock. A young nurse peeked in. Luke is awake. And she smiled gently, adding, he's asking for his grandmother. Entering the hospital room, I found Luke curled up small in the large white bed. His hand with the four had the bandage I'd seen in the photo. Various medical equipment lined the room, with Boston's skyline visible through the window. Grandma. A weak voice. But the moment he saw me, his eyes regained their sparkle. I missed you so much. I rushed to his bedside and gently held his hand. I'm sorry, Grandma, for scaring you. But I couldn't tell. Mom and Dad seemed so busy lately. I'm the one who should be sorry. If only I had. No, Grandma, you noticed. You always made me delicious soup, and those dinosaur-shaped vegetables. Luke smiled slightly sheepishly and continued. I told the nurse about your dinosaur vegetables. She said, your grandmother must be a superhero. She's right. He lifted his hand with the four slightly and said. When I was scared of the injection, I thought about the triceratops you made, and it gave me courage. I felt like I could be strong like a triceratops. At those words, everyone in the room's eyes welled up. Sarah repeatedly whispered, "Thank you," while James stared out the window, wiping away tears he couldn't hold back. Dr. Anderson explained the upcoming treatment plan. Though long-term hospitalization would be necessary, early discovery had broadened their treatment options. Luke, we'll need your dinosaur power from now on. But don't worry. You've got Grandma's superpower on your side too. At the doctor's words, Luke gave a small but firm nod. Through the hospital room window, the evening sky was visible. Luke's beloved Orion constellation would soon rise. Grandma, promise me. Let's watch the stars together again. Next time, I'll teach you even more star names. Of course. And I'll think up new dinosaur shapes too. Yay! I'll definitely get better, and we'll watch the stars together again. His small hand gripped mine tightly. In that grip, I felt a definite light of hope. The sunset cast warm light into the white hospital room, quietly illuminating the beginning of new days of battle. 1 year later. Soft spring sunlight bathed the main entrance of Boston Children's Hospital. Grandma, look. My discharge papers. Luke proudly held up the documents. His once thin body had gradually regained its roundness, with healthy color returning to his cheeks. You did so well. Yes. Because I made a promise. To watch the stars with Grandma. While helping with discharge preparations, I reflect on this past year. Days of difficult treatment. But Luke never complained. With each four, he encouraged himself saying, Triceratops must have endured worse pain, and took bitter medicine thinking Brontosaurus could eat bitter leaves. I continued my weekly trips to Boston, bringing dinosaur-shaped vegetables and soup. And there was a new discovery. Other children in the ward began showing interest in Luke's dinosaur vegetables. "Mrs. Mitchell, your vegetable art has helped some children regain their appetite," Nurse Mary reported happily. This led to cooking classes in the ward. It became a time to share anxieties and hopes with other families. Sarah changed too. "Mom, I've decided to become a pediatric oncologist. Using my experience both as a doctor and a mother." She's now starting new training. James said, "Mom, we're thinking of moving closer. We'd like you to be Luke's godmother." "Grandma, it's supposed to be a perfectly starry night tonight." Luke's voice brings me back to the present. "Yes, indeed. I wonder if we'll discover any new constellations." "We will." And Luke pulled out a notebook from his bedside table. "I decided to keep records of important things, just like Grandma." Tears welled up. But they were warm tears. Tears of joy at being able to continue watching Luke grow. Above us as we left the hospital, the spring breeze gently rustled the gleaming leaves of the trees. On a bitterly cold night in Denver, Rachel Bennett was preparing for her night shift in the pediatric ward at Denver Health Medical Center. In the locker room, filled with the scent of disinfectant, she changed into her nurse's uniform while checking her smartphone. A message from her daughter Katie: "Mom, so excited for tomorrow's party. Night shift again." "You've been at it for 3 weeks straight," Maria, her colleague, called out with concern. She held a stack of patient charts in her hands, with colorful pens peeking out from her uniform pocket. "Yes, but it's fine. Katie's tuition is due this month," Rachel smiled, though fatigue was evident on her face. At 38, wrinkles were definitely starting to form around her eyes. Looking at her reflection in the mirror, she let out a quiet sigh. The night shift pay was good. Plus, it meant fewer encounters with her mother-in-law, Margaret. Though publicly known as a philanthropist, Margaret wielded enormous influence on the hospital board. Just last month, a young nurse had been suddenly forced to resign. "Did you hear about Emily?" Maria lowered her voice. In the empty hallway near the nurses' station, she checked their surroundings before continuing. "They say she was forced out by board pressure. Her patient care was perfect, too." "Yes, Margaret's influence on the board is absolute," Rachel replied, her expression bitter. Just saying her mother-in-law's name made her chest tighten. Margaret's name always shone at the top of the donor list displayed on the pediatric ward walls. "But you're safe, aren't you? There's no nurse more trusted in this hospital's pediatric ward." Rachel returned an ambiguous smile to Maria's words. True, her evaluations were excellent. But that didn't mean she was completely free from her mother-in-law's influence. In the hospital boardroom, the next round of personnel decisions lay on the heavy wooden table. Rachel's name was there. A promotion, or a transfer? Everything would likely be decided by her mother-in-law's word. The next day, Katie was carefully preparing at home. She stood before her closet, choosing her outfit with special meaning. A light blue dress, her mother's gift for her 12th birthday. Wearing it held great significance. While carefully braiding her long brown hair in front of the mirror, she checked an envelope in her drawer. It contained 3 months' worth of records. Smartphone recordings, notes, photos. All perfect evidence. But it wasn't enough. She needed decisive proof. "Would you like some help?" Margaret's voice suddenly came from behind. Katie's body instantly tensed. "No thank you, I'm almost ready," she fought to keep her voice steady. "I see. Have fun." Margaret's voice carried a meaningful tone. Dressed in a black cashmere dress, she looked every bit the elegant lady. But her eyes gleamed coldly. "I'm going now." Katie's voice trembled slightly as she stood at the front door. She shouldered her weekend bag and gripped her smartphone. "Be careful. Call if anything happens," Rachel answered while checking her own phone before her night shift. "I will. I love you, Mom." Her daughter hugged her more tightly than usual, her small back trembling slightly. Making one last stop at her mother's room, Katie opened the desk drawer. Inside was a copy of the nursing license. She quietly took out her smartphone and photographed it. As evidence. Her small hands trembled slightly. In the twilight-lit hallway, Katie paused at the sound of conversation drifting up from below. "If that child speaks, this family is finished," Margaret's icy voice carried upstairs. "Don't let Rachel say a word. We have things to protect." Stephen's voice held a note of panic. The luxury car payments, the facade of an elegant lifestyle, all supported by his mother's financial power. Katie stood frozen, both hands pressed against her mouth to stay silent. Her heart pounded. The voice memo on her smartphone continued its quiet recording. Recently, she had been gradually moving her belongings to school. Uniforms, textbooks, precious photographs. And the numerous pieces of evidence recorded on her smartphone. Her locker at Kent Denver School now contained everything she needed, including a new phone, hidden away. "Promise me, Sarah. Keep it absolutely secret." The two faced each other in the school library after classes. No one else was around. "Don't worry, I'll protect you. The teachers are all on our side too." Sarah's eyes held determination. Records of meetings with the school counselor were already prepared. Like a daily ritual, she checked her mother's room each morning, confirming the nursing license's presence. Her mother's job. That crucial certificate that supported their family's life. Her grandmother held it hostage. Walking through the halls of Denver Health Medical Center, Rachel reflected on her daughter's recent behavior. Photos gradually disappearing from bedroom walls. Soft crying sounds in the middle of the night. Trembling fingers operating her smartphone. And in her eyes, an indescribable fear. It had all been right there in front of her. But she hadn't seen it. Hadn't realized that her salary, supporting 70% of their household, had become chains. that her beloved daughter was silently crying out for help. The hospital's fluorescent lights shone coldly. The clock hands moved quietly but surely toward tomorrow night. The wheels of fate had already begun turning dramatically. On a chilly evening in early November, at 7 p.m., Katie headed to Sarah's house with a tense expression. In Cherry Creek's quiet residential area, autumn leaves cast eerie shadows in the streetlight glow. Cold wind whistled between houses warmly lit from within. It seemed like their usual weekend sleepover party. But tonight was different. The success of their plan rested on Katie's small shoulders. Her bag contained a smartphone with newly installed apps. Special ones, for collecting evidence. "Welcome, Katie," Sarah's mother, Jennifer Walker, greeted her warmly. A nurse herself, she always maintained a kind smile. For classmates had already gathered in the well-ordered living room. "Good evening, Mrs. Walker." Katie's voice was slightly higher than usual. The scent of popcorn filled the air. A movie played on the TV screen. "Snacks and juice are on the table. Help yourself." The girls cheered at Jennifer's words, but Katie and Sarah's expressions held a hint of tension. At 8 p.m., an unexpected visitor arrived. The doorbell interrupted the girls' chatter. Katie's body tensed momentarily. "Oh, Mrs. Margaret," Jennifer stood at the door, surprised. The sudden visit of Margaret Bennett, a society notable, seemed out of place in this modest neighborhood. "I hope you don't mind. I brought some homemade brownies for Katie." Margaret smiled graciously, holding an elegant box. Wrapped in a deep blue cashmere coat, she looked every bit the loving grandmother. But something cold lurked behind her eyes. "How thoughtful, but you shouldn't have." Jennifer's voice held a trace of confusion. "A local dignitary making a personal visit at this hour? It's nothing. Katie is my precious granddaughter, after all." Margaret's voice dripped like honey. But her sharp gaze took in every detail of the room. In the living room, the girls were absorbed in video games. But Katie and Sarah's eyes met briefly. According to plan, the smartphone's camera was already recording. "Katie, grandmother made these especially for you." Margaret opened the box, releasing the aroma of chocolate brownies. Perfect appearance. Perfect color. But inside. "Thank you, grandmother," Katie replied politely. Her small hands trembled slightly. "Share them with everyone. It's a special recipe." With that, Margaret departed gracefully. The sound of a luxury car's engine echoed through the quiet neighborhood. Katie didn't move until the sound faded away. "Let's enjoy these." Jennifer began dividing the brownies onto small plates. The sweet aroma filled the room. As planned, Katie and Sarah photographed the brownies. The date, time, and Margaret's name on the box. Everything recorded as evidence. The two had coordinated their story. Just in case. By 9 p.m., the party was in full swing. The movie had ended, and the girls were playing dance games. But suddenly, Katie and Sarah's conditions changed. "I don't feel well." Katie clutched her stomach. Her face had gone pale. Her limbs began to shake. Beside her, Sarah showed similar symptoms. "Are you two all right?" Jennifer rushed over. Her expression turned serious as she drew on her nursing experience. She checked their pulses, examined their pupils. Her expression clouded. "I'm calling an ambulance." She made the decision instantly. At 9:15 p.m., the emergency call went out. Meanwhile, Sarah's mother continued necessary first aid. In the pediatric ward at Denver Health Medical Center, Rachel's phone vibrated in her pocket at 9:30 p.m. "Mrs. Bennett?" The voice on the other end stopped her world. "Your daughter has been brought to emergency." Blood drained from her face. Her hands shook. The fluorescent lights at the nurses' station suddenly seemed too bright. "What happened?" "Katie. We'll explain everything at the hospital." And a moment's hesitation. "The police are here too." At 10 p.m., Rachel arrived at the hospital. But an unexpected scene awaited her. Two uniformed officers stood at the emergency entrance. Their stern expressions amplified Rachel's anxiety. She tried to rush forward. "Mrs. Bennett, you can't see your daughter right now." "Why?" "I'm her mother. This is a crucial investigative decision. For your and your daughter's safety." In the hospital's fluorescent-lit hallway, the clock hands moved cruelly slow. "Rachel." She turned to find her colleague Dr. Thompson standing there. The pediatric chief physician's expression had lost its usual calm. "The blood test results." Just then, her husband and mother-in-law emerged from the elevator. Both wore expressions of barely concealed panic. "Leave this to us." Stephen's voice carried a commanding tone. The police allowed them into the room. 15 minutes later, the pair emerged, inexplicably smiling. "Everything's fine, just fatigue," Margaret's voice held a triumphant note. "Nothing to worry about," Stephen agreed. Their manner was unnaturally cheerful. But they didn't know. The room's security camera had recorded everything during those 15 minutes. Margaret whispering something in Katie's ear. Stephen desperately searching through the bag. Their relieved expressions when they found no evidence. Rachel's phone rang again. The caller ID showed Sarah's mother. Her fingers trembled. She didn't yet know this call would trigger the revelation of all truths. The police had begun moving quietly but surely. Years of silence were about to end tonight. In the quiet hallway of Denver Health Medical Center, past 11 p.m., normal visiting hours had ended. But in one pediatric ward room, an important investigation was underway. "Mrs. Walker, let me ask you once more," Detective Mike Carter spoke in a calm voice. "You felt something was wrong when Margaret Bennett brought those brownies?" "Yes. At that hour, to make a special trip." Jennifer's hands trembled as she held a paper cup of coffee. "Plus, I'm a nurse. When I saw Katie's symptoms, I knew immediately. This wasn't just food poisoning." In the hospital lab, Dr. Thompson studied the blood test results. Her expression grew increasingly grave. Sleeping medication, at twice the normal concentration. The forensics expert beside her nodded. The likelihood of intentional administration is extremely high. In another room, a digital forensics expert analyzed the data from Katie's smartphone. 3 months of audio recordings, photos, notes, and tonight's decisive evidence. Everything had been systematically recorded. Watch this video. The expert showed the screen to the police officer. The security camera had captured the crucial 15 minutes in the hospital room. Don't tell anyone. If you do, your mother's career is over. Margaret's whispered voice played clearly. The evidence. Did you find it? Stephen's panicked voice. And their relieved expressions when they found nothing. Everything was recorded. In the hallway waiting area, Rachel heard the truth from Jennifer. Katie had been recording everything for 3 months. Jennifer's voice shook. She consulted the school counselor, gathered evidence. But she was worried about your job. Large tears fell from Rachel's eyes. All the pieces were connecting now. The disappearing photos from her daughter's room. The crying at night. The daily ritual of checking her mother's room. Everything had been preparation for this day. My mother-in-law was holding my nursing license hostage. Rachel's voice trembled. Using her influence on the hospital board. That's correct, Detective Carter approached. Margaret Bennett was exerting undue pressure on hospital personnel. Your daughter recorded that as evidence too. The audio played. Don't let Rachel talk. We have things to protect. If that child speaks, this family is over. The conversation dated back 3 months. Everything had started then. Katie's phone contained even more shocking records. Daily psychological abuse by her grandmother. Her father's silent compliance. Sometimes even participation. Everything was meticulously documented. Locking her in a dark room for hours, claiming poor grades. Withholding meals. Threatening her with her mother's career. The detective read the facts dispassionately. Each word pierced Rachel's heart. Why couldn't I see it? Her trembling voice was met with Jennifer's comfort. You were working desperately every night. Katie knew that. That's why she tried to solve it herself. The truth went even deeper. Another phone was hidden in Katie's locker at Kent Denver School. It contained more detailed records. Meetings with the school counselor. Teachers' testimonies. And tonight's plan. The party was a trap, the detective continued. Katie predicted Margaret would make a move. So she prepared. The photos of the brownies. Evidence of drugging. And the conversation in the hospital room. Everything was part of a carefully orchestrated plan by a 12-year-old girl to expose the truth. My daughter was so strong. Pride and sorrow mixed in Rachel's voice. Then, sounds came from down the hall. Police officers moved into action. Margaret Bennett, Stephen Bennett, Detective Carter announced firmly. "You're under arrest." The blood drained from Margaret's face beneath her luxurious cashmere coat. Beside her, Stephen tried to resist, but it was futile. "This is a misunderstanding." Margaret's voice echoed in the hallway. But no one listened anymore. The evidence was perfect. Gathered over 3 months by a 12-year-old girl. To protect her mother. To protect herself. And for justice. Mother and daughter reunited in the hospital hallway late that night. "Mom. I'm sorry." Rachel held Katie tightly as her voice trembled. "I'm the one who should apologize. For not noticing, but it's okay now." Outside the window, dawn approached. The long night of silence was ending. And a new morning awaited mother and daughter. 1 week after the incident, morning at Denver Health Medical Center. The pediatric ward had regained its usual peaceful atmosphere. However, in the hospital boardroom, an intense meeting was underway. "Margaret Bennett's improper interference in personnel matters has severely damaged our credibility," Dr. Anderson, the board chairman, stated gravely. A detailed investigation report lay on the desk. "We will immediately consider reinstating nurses who were unjustly forced to resign, starting with Emily Parker." Board members nodded at his words. With Margaret's arrest, years of hidden misconduct were coming to light. At Denver Police Headquarters, Detective Mike Carter methodically confirmed the facts in the interrogation room. "So, Margaret Bennett, you used a nursing license as leverage to control Rachel Bennett and her daughter Katie over an extended period?" "I was only trying to help them." Margaret's voice trailed off. Her luxurious cashmere coat was gone, replaced by standard detention center attire. "And finally, you endangered a 12-year-old girl with sleeping medication." The detective's voice rang cold. "I resigned," she admitted everything. In the adjacent interrogation room, Stephen did the same. In the residential area of Cherry Creek, 2 girls faced each other in front of Sarah's house. "Thank you, really." Katie's voice trembled. "That's what best friends are for." Sarah smiled. "Besides, my mom helped too." Jennifer Walker had used her nursing experience to quickly arrange the ambulance and notify the police. All part of the girls' plan. "But I was really scared," Sarah's expression clouded. "When I ate that brownie." "I'm sorry. But there was no other way." Katie apologized. The girls hugged tightly. Their friendship had helped them overcome this ordeal. At Kent Denver School, school counselor Ms. Thomas smiled quietly. "Well done, Katie." 3 months of records lay on her desk. "Your courage changed everything." The teachers had secretly supported Katie. The phone hidden in her locker. Organizing evidence in the library after school. All made possible through their cooperation. At Denver Health Medical Center, Rachel received new orders. "Your promotion to head nurse of pediatrics is approved," Dr. Anderson's voice carried warmth. "This is based on your merit alone, not anyone's influence." Colleagues celebrated in the night ward. Tears glistened in Maria's eyes. Finally, you're getting the recognition you deserve. In their new apartment's living room, mother and daughter shared a quiet dinner. A modest but warm table. Is it good? Rachel asked, slightly nervous. Yes, perfect. Katie's smile brightened the room. A new phone sat on the desk. No longer needed for surveillance. No more evidence to gather. Just an ordinary phone for capturing everyday moments between mother and daughter. Mom, Katie spoke with a serious expression. I want to become a nurse in the future. Tears welled in Rachel's eyes. But not because someone's threatening me this time. I really want to help people. Her daughter's eyes shone with determination. At support group meetings, mother and daughter met others with similar experiences. Your courage gave us hope, one participant spoke through tears. Especially Katie's actions. The 12-year-old girl's courage had changed many lives. New photos accumulated on the new phone. Mother and daughter smiling. Fun times with friends. And hope for a bright future. In a park on the outskirts of Denver, mother and daughter walked under autumn-colored trees. Aren't you cold? Rachel draped her jacket over her daughter's shoulders. I'm fine. My heart feels warm. Katie held her mother's hand. True, November's cold wind was blowing. But it was a wind announcing the start of a new season. Mother and daughter walked slowly forward. Hey, Mom. What is it? We're going to be okay, aren't we? Rachel nodded firmly at those words. Yes, they would be okay. After all, they had already overcome their most severe trial. At the hospital, reforms progressed under the new board. At school, a stronger student support system was being built. And the police continued careful investigations into similar abuse cases. Winter was approaching the city. But for Rachel and Katie, this wasn't their first winter. Certainly not their last. Just one precious page in their new life. Their shadows stretched long in the sunset, like signposts pointing toward the future. Mom, what should we do tonight? How about watching a movie? Yes. Such ordinary conversations were now most precious. In the pediatric ward of Denver Health Medical Center, a small note was tucked into Rachel's locker after her night shift. Dear Mom. I'm proud to have you as my mother. I love you. Love, Katie. Rachel held the letter to her chest. Their new story was just beginning. And surely, it would be a happy one. Morning mist hung heavy over Maple Street in the Boston suburbs. Among the neat houses enclosed by white picket fences, Maggie Thompson was busy tending to her garden. The scent of soil and dew-dampened grass melted into the peaceful morning air. Old maple trees cast gentle dappled shadows on the ground. Mrs. Thompson. Good morning. Looking up at the cheerful voices of neighborhood children, she saw elementary school students waving as they waited for the school bus. Their Maplewood Elementary School uniforms, navy blazers with red ties, gleamed brightly in the morning sun. "Good morning, everyone. Have a wonderful day," Maggie responded with a warm smile. Setting down her pruning shears by the rose bushes, she waved back at the children. After 32 years as a local elementary school teacher, she was deeply trusted by the community. On weekends, after worship at First Baptist Church of Newton, volunteering at the church's Sunday school had become another cherished part of her routine. Even in retirement, her warm personality remained unchanged. As she resumed tending to her roses, Maggie's thoughts drifted to the upcoming weekend dinner with her family. Since losing her husband George to illness 3 years ago, time spent with her only son Brian and his family had become her greatest comfort. Their Sunday dinners were an unwavering tradition, and lately, they often gathered after her grandson Lucas's baseball games. Brian had become one of the most successful entrepreneurs in town. Showing programming talent since high school, he studied at MIT and made his mark developing security software. 20 years ago, after the bitter experience of his father's company being taken over, he started his own business. His company had now grown to employ over 200 people. Brian, with his calm and collected nature, was a family man who especially cherished time with his son Lucas. Though busy on weekdays, he never missed Lucas's weekend baseball games, watching his son's growth with intense focus. However, lately, he had been coming home later from work. Maggie worriedly observed him spending long hours secluded in his study. Brian's wife Ashley worked as chief stylist at Eternal, an upscale boutique on Newbury Street. Well respected in the fashion industry, she was a regular stylist at Boston Fashion Week. Since meeting Brian at Boston College, she had been a devoted wife and mother, supporting their family. Tall and stylish Ashley would cook elaborate meals for her family on holidays. Sunday roast, in particular, was precious family time. However, recently, things had changed dramatically, and an invisible crack had begun forming between the couple. What concerned Maggie most was the change in her grandson Lucas. A first grader at Maplewood Elementary and the ace pitcher for the local Little League at age 6, he combined his father's intellectual curiosity with his mother's bright, energetic personality. A passionate Boston Red Sox fan, he often told Maggie about his dream of pitching at Fenway Park. "Grandma, I struck out 3 batters again." But lately, Lucas's smile had begun to cloud over. Though showing strong attachment to his mother Ashley, he had started crying at night, and his teacher reported that he seemed listless at school. 2 weeks ago, on Sunday, the backyard barbecue had been a lively gathering celebrating Lucas's baseball team's championship. Pleasant autumn sunshine streamed down, the grill wafted savory aromas, and children's excited voices echoed throughout the yard. "Dad, watch this." Lucas's white ball cut through the blue sky. "That's amazing. You're definitely our ace." As Brian lifted his son, Ashley joined them for a family photo. "Mom, let's throw some more." "Well, but first, let's eat some hamburgers." Watching their natural smiles, Maggie savored the happiness. The table was laden with apple pie brought by neighbors and salads from church friends. It was an afternoon that radiated community warmth. Munching on the hamburgers Ashley had carefully prepared, Lucas enthusiastically discussed baseball with his father. Ashley smiled gently beside them. They believed this simple happiness would last forever. Now that scene feels like a distant memory. The barbecue's aroma that had filled the garden, the children's laughter, it all seemed to have faded like an old photograph in an album. As Maggie put away her pruning shears, she reflected on the recent changes in her family. She had no way of knowing that this peaceful morning scene was about to change dramatically. "I can't stay together anymore." Ashley had spoken those words just a week ago. It happened when they accidentally met in the Whole Foods Market parking lot. Ashley, who normally appeared impeccably coordinated, wore minimal makeup that day, with dark circles under her eyes. "I'm involved with investor James Crawford." Ashley's tearful confession seemed somehow unnatural. As she spoke about her relationship with James, whom she'd met at the boutique Eternal, her eyes were vacant, refusing to explain clear reasons. She held a new luxury brand bag, but her fingers trembled slightly. "But why? You loved Brian, didn't you?" "I don't really understand either. It's just..." In Ashley's expression as she trailed off, Maggie sensed something left unsaid. "What about Lucas?" At that question, Ashley's face twisted momentarily. "Lucas. I'll take him. James agrees." After that conversation, Ashley hurriedly got into her car and drove away. Her profile in the rearview mirror seemed to glisten with tears. Brian's reaction was even more unnatural. Learning of his wife's infidelity and request for divorce, he maintained an eerily calm demeanor. Showing neither anger nor sadness, her son simply suggested, "Let's resolve this through discussion." Instead, he spent more time secluded in his study, absorbed in late-night phone calls and computer work. Maggie, getting up for water in the kitchen, often noticed his study light still on past 2 a.m. "Brian, are you all right?" "Yes, Mom. Don't worry. Everything will work out." Those words were filled with certainty, but carried an unsettling shadow. The low male voice on the other end of phone calls. Her son hurriedly closing doors. The expression hiding something behind his intense gaze at the computer screen. The impact was definitely reaching Lucas. "Mom's acting strange." These words from her grandson, sitting in her lap after school, pierced Maggie's heart. He had become less enthusiastic about baseball practice. Strange how? "I don't know, but there's always a scary person behind Mom." "A scary person?" "Yes, someone in black clothes. When Mom talks to them, she looks like she's going to cry." Lucas began crying more frequently at night. His screams for Ashley would echo through the house in the dead of night. Though Brian would rush to comfort him, the crying grew increasingly intense. Maggie's maternal instinct told her something was seriously wrong. Her son's unnatural calmness. Ashley's sudden personality change. The unsettling atmosphere in their home. And above all, Lucas's anxious demeanor. Particularly concerning was Brian's behavior in his study. The phone calls lasting into the night. the complex numbers scrolling across his computer screen. And the name, Crawford, that occasionally surfaced. The investor Ashley had mentioned. Each time that name was spoken, Maggie noticed Brian's expression momentarily harden. With her years of experience watching children as a teacher, she had a keen eye for detecting family crises. However, this time, she still couldn't fully grasp what was happening within her own family. That weekend, after worship at First Baptist Church of Newton, Maggie offered a prayer for her family's safety and happiness. But that prayer would be tested just a few days later. Events began moving rapidly in an unexpected direction. Tuesday morning, October 29th. At 8:15 a.m. Maggie was heading to her son's house to deliver Lucas's baseball glove he had forgotten at school yesterday. The maple trees, beginning to turn red, painted the street in vibrant colors. However, on this particular day, the scenery felt oddly ominous. Confirming the recent unsettling situation was also one reason driving her feet forward. As she approached her son's house, she was struck by a sensation of the air growing heavier. Usually at this time, neighborhood housewives would be enjoying their morning walks. However, an unnatural stillness hung over the street. The white two-story house came into view. She remembered the study light had been on until late last night. This morning, all windows were dark, curtains still drawn. As she walked toward the entrance, her sense of unease grew stronger. The front yard, usually meticulously maintained, showed signs of being trampled. The welcome mat was slightly askew. She pressed the doorbell, but there was no response. Another press yielded the same silence. Brian? Ashley? As she called out and reached for the doorknob, she found it unlocked. In that moment, a chill ran down her spine. Her son's house was never, ever left unlocked. Brian, abnormally neurotic about security, would never make such a basic mistake. Opening the door, warm stale air seeped out from inside. Multiple footprints in the entryway. Shoes usually neatly arranged were scattered about. Is anyone here? Her voice was absorbed into the silent house. A faint sound from the living room. The sense of someone sitting in a chair. Lucas? Brian? She advanced cautiously. The soft carpet absorbed her footsteps. The kitchen on the right showed no signs of use. No breakfast preparations had been made. Another sound came from the living room on the left. Then, a trembling "Grandma" struck Maggie's heart directly. The moment she stepped into the living room, the scene before her eyes took her breath away. Lucas tied to a dining chair. His wrists were loosely, clumsily bound. As if whoever did it had no real intention of hurting a child. Light bruising on his cheek. More like an injury from careless haste than any violent intent. Lucas. As Maggie rushed over, her grandson's body trembled slightly. His eyes were wet with tears, no trace of his usual bright expression. His school uniform was wrinkled, showing he hadn't changed since yesterday. Mom. Mom left me. Lucas continued in a shaking voice. She said Dad was dangerous, help. Those words drained the blood from Maggie's face. Hurriedly pulling out her smartphone, she dialed Brian's number. The number you are trying to reach is currently out of service. Then Ashley's number. Out of service. Without hesitation, she dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? I came to my son's house and found my grandson tied to a chair. What's the address? 42 Maple Street, Newton. All the while, Lucas's trembling wouldn't stop. Maggie explained the situation while keeping one hand on her grandson's shoulder. Please don't leave the scene until police arrive. Understood. Hanging up, Maggie tried to maintain her composure while untying Lucas's bonds. Lucas, can you tell me slowly what happened? What's going on? While gently questioning him, she checked his condition. Fortunately, there were no serious injuries. However, his small body still wouldn't stop shaking. And Maggie didn't yet know that this was just the beginning of a long nightmare. As they waited for the police to arrive, Lucas slowly began to tell fragments of the morning's events. His still trembling voice. Words breaking off occasionally. His small hands tightly gripping Maggie's sweater. Dad got up really early this morning. Lucas began speaking slowly, eyes downcast. He said, I have important work today. But something was wrong. Wrong how? Dad's face was so stiff. He didn't smile like usual mornings. And then, right after that, Mom came with a man I didn't know. Lucas's voice grew smaller. He was with the scary person in black. Voices heard from the upstairs study. We need to find the documents. We have to stop Brian. Fragments of urgent conversation. Then Mom came to me. Lucas's voice trembled. She said, I'm sorry, while crying. And then Ashley gently sat her son in the chair, then slowly but surely tied him up. Her trembling hands at that moment. Eyes wet with tears. And the words whispered in his ear. Don't move. It'll be over soon. Police sirens approached from the distance. Maggie sprang into action. First, checking the house's security. Examining all windows and doors. Any signs of suspicious entry? Was the back garden exit locked? She called the neighbors. Mrs. Wilson, did you notice any suspicious people or cars? Early this morning, there was an unfamiliar black SUV. Then she provided detailed information to the police. Family composition. Recent changes. Ashley's alleged affair. Changes in Brian's behavior. Lucas's testimony. However, the decisive discovery was in the study. With police permission, Maggie went upstairs and gasped. Scattered documents. Ransacked drawers. The computer screen still on, displaying complex rows of numbers. Among the papers strewn across the floor, an old newspaper article caught her eye. Dated 20 years ago. Local IT company collapses due to fraudulent trading, Crawford Investments suspected of involvement. Beside it, Documents with recent dates. Evidence of James Crawford Jr.'s investment fraud. Traces of client asset misappropriation. Overseas account transaction records. And a note from Ashley. A string of numbers and letters like a code. Only the last line was clearly readable. October 29, 10 a.m., Federal Prosecutor's Office. Maggie's hands shook. All the dots were rapidly connecting. While police searched the house, Lucas gradually began to calm down. However, anxiety still lingered in his small eyes. "Grandma, are Dad and Mom okay?" Maggie couldn't immediately answer that question. Because she too was beginning to understand the true danger of this situation. After the police investigators left and Lucas was temporarily placed with the Wilson family next door, Maggie returned to her son's study. From the mountain of scattered documents, the truth from 20 years ago began to emerge. It started with the collapse of Brian's father, Maggie's husband George's software company. In the late 1990s, Thomson Software Solutions was one of the most promising startups in the Boston area. It had achieved steady growth in security software development. However, in 2003, the company suddenly fell into crisis. An old newspaper article captured that moment. Thomson Software Solutions collapses after hostile takeover by Crawford Investment, 350 employees lose jobs. James Crawford Sr.'s aggressive takeover. Behind it lay deliberate stock price manipulation and leaked insider information. However, in the trial at the time, Crawford was found not guilty due to lack of decisive evidence. "You can't prove anything." Crawford Sr.'s arrogant words recorded in the trial transcript. 3 months later, George passed away from the strain. Brian was an MIT student at the time. The collapse of his father's company. The hardship of the employees. His family's grief. The son who silently watched it all might have been preparing since then. And now, James Crawford Sr.'s son, James Jr., was committing investment fraud using the same methods as his father. The documents lined up detailed evidence. Illegal diversion of client assets. Creating fictitious investment projects to collect massive funds from wealthy individuals. Money laundering through overseas accounts. All of this was evidence Brian had gathered over 2 years. Ashley's sudden change was connected to this too. James Jr. appearing at her boutique. At first, just as a customer. However, he already knew about Ashley's existence. "Your husband is trying to destroy my father." Threats from Crawford Jr. words implying harm to her family. And the fabricated affair story. Ashley had no choice but to comply with Crawford's demands, unaware of her husband's plan. However, as she gradually began to realize the truth, she secretly started cooperating with Brian. And this morning, Brian was scheduled to testify at the federal prosecutor's office. To submit decisive evidence linking the 20-year-old case with the current investment fraud. Crawford's men were moving to prevent that. Ashley, sensing the danger, had chosen to tie up Lucas to protect him. The loose binding was intentional. To keep her son in a secure place while deceiving Crawford's men's eyes. All the points now connected. But problems remained. Where was Brian now? Was Ashley safe? And Crawford? Maggie's smartphone rang. A call from an unknown number. At that moment, a new development was about to begin. Mrs. Thompson, this is Sarah Martinson from the Boston Federal Prosecutor's Office. The voice on the other end was calm and reassuring. Your son is currently under FBI protection. His testimony was completed successfully. Maggie's tension gradually eased. Mrs. Ashley is also protected. Her information greatly contributed to the operation's success. At that moment, the doorbell rang. Carefully opening the door, 2 FBI agents stood there. Mrs. Thompson, we're here to escort you to your son and daughter-in-law. Lucas came running from the Wilson house. Grandma. Where's Dad and Mom? And then, 2 figures appeared behind him. Lucas. Ashley rushed over, hugging her son tightly. The tears wouldn't stop. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Brian also hurried over, embracing his family. It's okay now. It's all over. At the same time, Boston media were reporting breaking news. Crawford Investment CEO arrested, large-scale investment fraud uncovered. Illegal activity in 20-year-old corporate takeover, investigation reopened with new evidence. Whistleblower reveals $1 billion in fraud. Still embracing his family, Brian began to explain. I've been preparing for 2 years. While gathering evidence of Crawford Jr.'s investment fraud, I was also trying to uncover the truth about Dad's company. But why didn't you tell us? To Ashley's question, Brian smiled gently. I didn't want to put you in danger. But in the end, I needed your help. Ashley squeezed her husband's hand. When James threatened me then, but when I found your documents, I understood everything. Your acting was perfect. Yes. But I feel so sorry for Lucas. Lucas held both his parents' hands tightly. The scary people won't come anymore. No, everything's okay now. 1 month later, on Sunday, Maggie's backyard was once again filled with family. The aroma of barbecue melted into the autumn air. Lucas played catch with his father using a new glove. Ashley, as always, was preparing her specialty dishes. And Brian was showing a genuinely soft smile for the first time in a long while. Looking at George's memorial photo, Maggie whispered, "You must be happy too." As the sun began to set, maple leaves gleamed golden. Their nearly lost daily life had returned in tangible form. Family bonds that had grown stronger through trials. It was something precious that could withstand any storm. Watching her happily smiling family, Maggie made a vow in her heart. To continue protecting these precious bonds, now and always.